Rupert, I think that it's pretty crucial that we acknowledge a pretty big deal over the last few days. Harry and Meghan celebrating their sixth wedding anniversary. They went on a double date with Brian and Tracy Robbins to their favorite steakhouse in Montecito. We see them at the steakhouse quite often. I think it's interesting that we're seeing them with Brian and Tracy. These are the two individuals that they went to the Bob Marley premiere with. They walked the carpet with them. Brian is a Paramount executive. Tracy received one of the golden jam jars, one of the cherished jam jars. I like to see that they are maintaining that relationship, because they burn through friends like I've seen some people burn through a pack of cigarettes.
Yes, and I think it is interesting. They can clearly see that there's mileage to be seen with this particular power couple, and they are a power couple. And when you're paying, I wonder who picked up the tab for the $175 porterhouse steak that is possibly on the menu, which they may have eaten. So it wouldn't have been a cheap night out, but I wondered whether they were prepared to pay for their friends to come along. So who was underwriting it? But fine, sixth wedding anniversary. I can't believe that it feels like it was 6 years ago that they were getting married, and the optimism that surrounded the marriage, and particularly in this country, what Meghan was going to bring to the royal party. Well, obviously, in that 6 years, an awful lot of water has gone under the bridge. Most of it has been negative as far as they're concerned and their feeling of the royal family, because it went south very quickly. And that's the sad thing. So, yes, if they're happily married, that's what they wanted to do, move to California, start a new life. Well, it would be very surprising if they weren't going out on dates to celebrate a wedding anniversary, because it's the new life they want. So happy days. But as you say, friendships, they do not seem to have long-term friendships. But there may be ulterior motives, says he cynically, as to why they're such good friends with these people.
That's so true. Well, I do think that 6 years is a big deal based on, Harry and Meghan have really created this us against the world kind of relationship. They have I mean, there's no doubt that they've struggled throughout the last 6 years. And we saw, even in the Netflix documentary, the constant strain it felt like these two were under, whether they're suing this person or that person. There were a lot of really sad, dark moments throughout that docu-series, and they continue to sue people, and they can, I mean, when did they come up for a breath of fresh air? Because it does feel like they're constantly at war with someone. Is that stress on the relationship, or does that continue to strengthen the relationship?
Well, you hope now that they've got to put the stuff that's gone on behind them and move on, because if there has to be a line when they stop being negative about everything or their previous life. Yet at the same time, they want that piece of life. Let's be honest, going to Nigeria, now we're going to talk about it. The whole thing is they still see their royal connections. Well, they've actually got to now say, what are we? We are not a member of the royal family. We are a commercial entity. Let's be quite clear. That's what they're. Now, it may have a philanthropic sort of bent to it, and that they will be doing some good things through their foundations. But they are a commercially based couple now, and that's how they have to operate. And that means that they are doing commercial deals to make themselves relevant. But when it all comes down to it, so they still go round as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So what do they want to be? And I think that's what frustrates people. Their litigious nature is frustrating, but as you know, Kinsey, they want to control the narrative with an inch of their lives. And that's what they did in Nigeria and elsewhere. And that's the point of them. They want to feel that they're in total control. And that, of course, was the ultimate reason why they wanted to leave the royal family, because they didn't have the control and it wasn't going to be their show.
Do you consider, because I have received so many messages about this, and they're not positive, do you consider the Nigerian trip a success? Was that a win for them?
It sort of looked, because they controlled the optics, they would always be in a position to make it, happy, smiling people greeting them. I do not know whether it was beauty was only skin deep here in terms of the optics and what was really going on underneath. And I think that's the problem. It looked, for all intents and purposes, like a royal tour. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people in this country will be frustrated about, because they weren't on a royal tour, yet they were fated by a Nigerian government that hasn't always played the right card. People's perception of what the Nigerian government is about, and it's a country with huge problems. The length and breadth of the land. There's great wealth, there's great poverty. Yet there they were, ultimately trying to generate interest in the Invictus Games. But the idea of royal visits they have a soft politics, don't they? There is the sort of what goes on behind the scenes. The countries like having members of the royal family there, and then behind the scenes, all the politicians and all the sort of trade people are beavering away in the background behind the optics of the royal family, giving a sort of feel-good factor to that particular royal visit. That's why they are, we've got the Emperor and Empress of Japan coming. There's obviously political undertones to that, even though they will be given the full red carpet treatment. So royal tours are important, but not Duke and Duchess of Sussex royal tours. They have no benefit now. And I think maybe members of the royal family, and if you read some of the press, are sort of saying, what is going on here? Because, they don't want to do royal tours, and yet there they were on one that looked all bar a royal tour, just without the British press being on hand to maybe upset the apple cart if things didn't go quite as well as they'd like.
Well, there was that famous quote that Valentine Lowe revealed, Meghan saying, "I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this." In this specific scenario, she controlled everything. She controlled her schedule. She controlled what she wore. She was in control. And I think that that is one of the things, aside from controlling the narrative, I think just control in general is something that is so important to them. So she probably did enjoy this a little bit more than she enjoyed a typical royal tour, because she got to say, I'm showing up an hour and a half late, which ultimately they did, and was so rude to their host.
Well, you wouldn't be able to do that on a royal tour, but that's them, unfortunately. Yeah, and actually, look, were those dresses appropriate that she was wearing? You probably would know more about it than I would, but it seemed to me that everywhere I looked, the person travelling one step behind at all times was Harry, the Duke of Sussex, and he's the one who opened the doors. So you got the sense that everything was about Meghan going back and discovering her 43% Nigerian heritage, which, fine, that's all very good and dandy. But it just felt like that Harry was always having to play second fiddle, because it had to be the Meghan show. But have they achieved stuff on behalf of arts? Well, I don't know. Are they going to be doing long-term good projects? I don't know. Will the Invictus Games go to Nigeria? Well, could do. But does he have the final say on that? I don't know. So again, looking at the overall feeling of it, they say they want to do more of them. Well, Meghan wants to do more of them so she can be center of attention. But do they want to be in the royal family? Why are they doing them? What other couple? We don't see other glamorous couples or celebrity couples going on a royal tour. They seem to be the only ones who are doing this. And, and I don't, what's the point of it?
If you think about the philanthropy that Angelina Jolie does, it's typically very much under the radar. We find out about it months or years later when she's accepting an award from it, because of it somewhere. We had no idea that she'd spent years working with this charity or that charity. It feels very much like it's all for the PR, all for the show. But one thing you said that I think is really important is Harry, chasing behind Meghan, Harry following Meghan. Rupert, he's still the spare. He is still the spare. Complains about it in an entire book, but remains in that position instead of embracing the fact that he's left the family and now he could be the leader. He could be in charge.
Yeah, because everything seems to be the focus on her. And that's what she wants. Because, the actress in her, you're in Tinseltown, you know what actors and actresses are like. It's all about me, and she wants to be a superstar. And this gives her the opportunity to be that, being feted left, right, and centre. And that's why I just, you look at it and say, what's their end game here? You know, it's all right going around doing all these PR things, but you actually have to put in the hard yards behind the scenes, and that means working very hard. If they want this, if she wants America Riviera Orchard to work well, she's got to put the hard yards in and not require on people who are just hired hands who, then come along and she shows up for a couple of meetings and says, I don't like that, or I like that, get on with that. It's more, if it wants to be her passion, she's got to be driving everything. Now, she may be, but I get the feeling that, that is not necessarily her strong point. Yes, you can have a figurehead, but all good companies are driven by the person at the top. And, there can be a big organization, but the tone is set from the top. And you've got to make sure that if she's going to be launching this, she's got her team absolutely singing from the same hymn sheet and understand the vision of what they're about. The moment I'm not sure the Duke and Duchess of Sussex know what their vision is post their split from royal, but the one thing you do seem to notice, it means still being called the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which in America, I go back to, is a land where they don't have titles, yet they seem to be a couple who insist on using their titles, and certainly Meghan does, at every opportunity.
So it is Friday. We're all kind of mentally preparing for Trooping the Color. A lot of the headlines leading up to Trooping the Color were about potentially how weak the family could look on the balcony, because we've got, our superstar, the Princess of Wales, out. The King, we know, has cancer. Harry and Meghan are gone. Boy, did the tide turn on Friday afternoon when we found out that the Princess of Wales would be attending. What was your first reaction?
Fair play, I thought. Her sense of duty, I think, was the important thing. Remember, she's Colonel of the Irish Guards, and they were the regiment of the Household Division that were trooping the colour. And so that would have meant a lot. And we know that she couldn't take part in the Colonel's Parade, which is the rehearsal the week before. And she wrote that letter saying she's very sad that she couldn't be there. But obviously, just like the King, doctor's advice was probably saying, right, if you feel not just physically up to it, but mentally up to it. Because actually, if you think, the focus of the parade inevitably was just on her and her 3 children. And they say that one of the reasons she also wanted to make sure she could do it, because she could accompany her 3 children to the King's birthday parade. But I think, in a way, it's a relief to see her back out.
Yes.
Now, there's no two ways about it. She's got all the help in the world to make sure she looked absolutely stunning. And first impressions were you wouldn't have known any different. If you'd seen a picture of her on Saturday a year ago, you'd have thought, what's happened in the intervening period?
Yes.
I think that's what you have to say. So presumably that means the recovery is going reasonably well. But the intensity of that, it was a distraction from the King.
Yes.
But probably a good thing. But the King's done his bit.
Yeah.
Hasn't he? He's been out and about, so we're used to seeing him.
Right.
But I think it was great to see. And I know the service personnel it added to the whole day. And look, you were on the front line getting wet. Right? I mean, you were, and I had a couple of friends who were in the Major General's stand, and they were sitting underneath where the Princess of Wales and her children were, the Major General's office, which overlooks Horse Guards Parade. And I spoke to some friends on Saturday night, and they just said it was. Luckily, we felt we couldn't put up our brollies in the Major General's stand. So as they say, we did a Richie Sunak. We took one for the team.
Oh.
And they came away drowned rats. Because didn't the rain came just afterwards, wasn't that right?
Yes. As they were heading back to Buckingham Palace, lightning, thunder, and it was intense.
When you saw, I'm going to throw a question to you. When you saw the coach come past, what was the frisson of excitement like round you?
Well, it was interesting because first of all, very personal things people were yelling at the King. We love you, get well soon. I saw people cheersing. There was alcohol. People had champagne. But it was interesting because seconds later, when they realized that Catherine was close behind him, you did hear the cheers get louder.
And then obviously with the 3 children.
Oh my goodness!
And did you have a good pitch?
I did. Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to say to you, you know, just talking about how beautiful Catherine looked and how you felt like that was, you know, good to see her looking so gorgeous and healthy looking. But I felt like the children, the way that Prince Louis was so carefree and silly, shaking around and dancing, I feel like that's a really good indication of the way that things are at home. Do you feel the same way?
Well, it's actually, if you look at the 3 of them, you've got George knowing, well, this is going to be my gig.
Yeah.
Right? So he's all sort of playing, you know, I've got to be careful because people are going to be watching because down the line, it's going to be my gig.
Right.
Okay, that's probably a rather, you know, unfortunate way of describing it. You've got Charlotte, who is clearly knows her own mind.
Oh, yes.
And is basically looking out for both of them. She's got the sort of future feeling of a Princess Royal about her.
Yes.
Okay? And then you have the naughty 3rd child.
I love him.
He's probably pretty unruly at home. They probably struggle to get him to go to bed because he seems to be a buzzball of energy. But heck, isn't that, they're trying to be a normal family. If you look at King's birthday parade or any parades before, it's all a bit starchy.
Yes.
But there are moments when William did it that on the balcony back in the 80s that he just sort of let the
wombat.
But it was only about 3 or 4. But it wouldn't have been quite the carefree. But actually, it's quite refreshing.
Yes.
And people look at it and go, And actually they look like, you know, the family trying to bring up their children as normally as possible. And that's been the comfort for her, and trying to lead, as I, you know, sort of hearing, she has tried to lead as, you know, do things with the family and the children. So being involved in the school side of things. They've obviously had to, it's very hard to control, but they've obviously managed to keep things under control in that regard, that she's been able to have a sort of bit of a private family life. Mm-hmm. And then you see that photograph, because that's why they were up in Norfolk.
Right.
And I mean, that photograph is Princess of Wales takes it. I don't know when, it must have been the one summer's day.
Right.
That we've had this year.
And you're referring to the Instagram post with Prince William with the children around him. Oh my gosh, that to me, I think my heart swelled like 3 sizes when I saw it. It was so beautiful and touching.
I mean, that beach is normally quite busy, so obviously, you know, I don't know whether they get it closed off, but it's a lovely part of the world up there. And it's obviously Amner Hall, Sandringham, and it's, you know, sort of can find a quiet time to go and do that. But I do know that's what they do. They like to just behave like a normal family in Norfolk. Obviously, they can't be a normal family. They're in this, Amner Hall is a big house, but they do try and use it as their, you know, where they can get away and people around there are not going to intrude on them. They know the rules. And so that, I think, is why. And that was a lovely photograph to see on Father's Day, and to see that they are trying to be as normal as family as possible. And that was reflected in the coach trip, and which looked, you know, the Princess of Wales is sitting there with her 3 children.
I mean, some of those pictures where Louis got his head back, cackling. Yeah. You know, I feel between the Father's Day photos, both of them, Prince William, and posting the photo that I've never seen before from 1984 of him and his father, wishing his father Happy Father's Day. That beautiful picture that you were just referencing of Prince William and the children. And looking at the balcony and some of those sweet moments, the Prince of Wales looking at the Princess of Wales, the King looking over lovingly at Catherine. You know, despite Harry and Meghan being missing, which I know a lot of people focused on, I felt like we saw real unity. And I almost feel that the absence of Harry strengthens this family, because there is a sense of peace, comfort. They are supporting one another in every way, shape, or form. And they're dealing with something so scary.
Well, they are. And actually, the thing was made that actually, if you look at the balcony setup, that 12 months ago, it was William who stood next to the King. But this year, and these things aren't done, you know, where are we standing is told. It was interesting that Catherine was standing next to the King and actually saying, right, they're going through this together. Now, we don't know how, the King is obviously, you know, he's proving to be pretty resilient and determined to carry on as much as possible. Because if you think when the Queen was alive, the late Queen, health issues until the Queen got later and Prince Philip amongst the royal family, there weren't many.
Right, right. And if there were, we certainly weren't privy to that
Oh,
information.
well, we never heard about it. But,
Yeah.
you know, it would have been, even so, they, you know, the fact is they lived into their 90s. They were they're a
Yes.
pretty robust family. But to suddenly have this happening means that just like any other family, the length and breadth of of the world, you know, cancer can strike at any time, or illness.
Doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter who you are. And it was nice that one of a big showpiece British occasion, as the King's birthday parade is, or the Trooping of the Colour, it was good that the sort of royal family were out and about. Did you also see the Princess Royal struggling with her horse as she came down?
I did, yes, but I wasn't worried about her because she's the Princess Royal. You know, she's got it handled. I trust her in an emergency situation before anyone.
This horse has got history. You talk about Louis got history in bad behaviour. The horse that the Princess Royal was riding, I think Prince William rode it last year, and so she got the gig. But if there's any, as you say, as a former European eventing champion. But remember, she's in her 70s.
That's true.
So it's not as if, you know, a lot of people have given up riding, yet not the Princess Royal. And actually, that was lovely to see her, and all part of that sort of the royal family doing their thing. Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, in the middle of that line of three, the sort of support flank for the king. And it was really important that they were there as well.
Oh my goodness, I'm so jealous. Right now you're at Wimbledon, but can we talk about Ask It? I mean, I felt like I was watching a celebrity every time I'd see you on the screen. You were with the Fawns. Was this the greatest Ask It ever? I mean, that would look like a blast.
Well, I mean, I've been doing it for 4 years, and you've probably been alive, Kinsey. It would be inappropriate to be asked how old you are, but I have been working at Ask It from the mid-90s. So I do know it well, and I have, over the years, met some interesting people. But I have to say, meeting Hollywood royalty in the Fonz, and he was being feted extraordinary. He was presented a prize, and the Queen, that's Queen Camilla, insisted on meeting him. So he was brought down. He was presenting a prize, and I was hanging around, but it was made quite clear that the Queen, after she presented the trophy on the final day, that she wanted to go and talk to the Fonz, because I believe the Fonz writes children's book. And one of the things the Queen does, and I know we're going slightly off topic with regard to the Prince and Princess of Wales, is she's very keen on promoting reading for children and adults. So it is something dear to her heart. So I have to say, it was a pleasure. And you could see how much, I think the Queen and the Fonz had met, but it was extraordinary seeing him sort of talking to the crowd, and it was sort of basking in his glow of brilliance, you know. But what I did realise is how small he was. They haven't out what the rest of the size of Happy Days cast were, because he looked like the biggest. So, but anyway, he's 78 or 9 now, and he was as joyous as ever to meet him at Royal Ascot, and all the other things that went on during the week, and you know, meeting interesting people, doing interesting things. But obviously, from a sports journalist point of view, which is my other hat, loved the racing, and with my royal hat on, also loved what was going on through that week in terms of the royal family, because what was interesting, you could genuinely see that the King and Queen enjoyed being there, and Prince of Wales was there on one day. On the Wednesday, he presented the prize. He too enjoyed being there, but obviously it was sad that he was unaccompanied, but you could see what it meant to him to be there. He looked like he enjoyed himself.
Sussex.com has announced that Prince Harry is to receive a new award, adding to that large trophy mantle that Harry and Meghan Markle have in their Montecito house. The website says among the esteemed recipients is Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, who will be honored with the Pat Tillman Award for service. This accolade celebrates individuals in the sports world who have made significant contributions to others, echoing the legacy of former NFL player and U.S. Army Ranger Pat Tillman. And now I'm sure you are a little bit familiar with his story. Pat Tillman was an NFL player who played for the Arizona Cardinals. You know, he really shocked the sports world when he gave up millions. It was over $3 million, that contract as a football player to enlist in the Army after 9/11. Then was killed in Afghanistan. It was by friendly fire, but for years his mother searched for the truth because that was not the initial story. And so he truly is an American hero. This is a very compelling story. A man that lived the life of service that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle said they were going to live when they left the royal family. You know that there have been petitions. You know that other people from ESPN have spoken out, and now Pat Tillman's mother. Can you tell me your first reaction when you heard about Prince Harry receiving this award?
He does seem to be getting more awards than anybody else seems to be getting. And you go, how? Because we're lucky sometimes if, people go through in your Tinseltown desperate for that one coveted Oscar. But he does seem to be getting more than his fair share. Now, it might be done with all the best intentions, but it does seem, okay, he served in the army. He also served in Afghanistan. And bearing in mind that Pat Tillman served in Afghanistan as well, so there is a link there. And the one thing Harry did do, and okay, we got some of the gory details of what he did, which upset service personnel in the book Spare. So I can see, yes, why, and the Invictus Games is a very significant development and has been well received within the service personnel around the world. So that is important, but it just unfortunately feels, I can see where Pat Tillman's mother is coming from, because there would be other people as well. But it is interesting, I believe Serena Williams, obviously my tennis connection here, is going to be presenting the award. And obviously she is a friend of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So I hope it's been done for the right reasons. But it just, if you've got the mother of the person who's award complaining, let's be honest, that's not a good look.
That's right. And she insists that ESPN did not consult her when it came to Prince Harry's nomination. She said to the Daily Mail, "I'm shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award." Because again, to remind you, Pat Tillman has a beautiful, huge, over-the-top, life-size statue outside of the Cardinals Stadium in Arizona. This man is considered an American hero. And she added that she thinks there are more deserving individuals who could have received the award. Unsung heroes who don't have Prince Harry's massive platform or privilege. And then, I just think a lot of people are looking at Pat Tillman, who sacrificed his life, left the comforts of the glitz and glamour and the bank account to serve his country. They look at Prince Harry, and Prince Harry left that life of service. Invictus is great, like you said, but he left that 24/7, 365 days a year job as a person that lived this life of service under the royal family umbrella to chase the red carpet, to chase the Hollywood glitz and glamour next to his actress wife.
Well, I wonder whether if he was still working in the royal family, would they still give him the award? That's the question you have to ask. Would they, if they, because he would.
Does Harry show up, or how often does Prince William show up to accept awards all over the place?
Well, he runs the Earthshot Award, but I haven't seen him accept awards. So that would be the question I'd be asking the ESPN people. Yes, they can say the Invictus Game, but if he was still living with his wife, working on behalf of the royal family, would he have got the award? If they say yes, then that's fine, but it'd be an easy thing to say. But if it's because he's in America and he brings cachet to the ESPN brand, they think, then that is wholly wrong, because an award like that on behalf of a man who sacrificed a glittering sporting career on behalf of his country, as you quite rightly say, then you have to look at, not necessarily Harry, because he might be finding Sonny in the middle of something that he didn't necessarily want. ESPN need to be the ones who look at themselves Because if they didn't consult with Pat Tillman's mother, according to what she said in the Mail, they didn't, then they need to take a look at, because if anyone runs an award, you probably want to say to the person whose name it's in honor, you want to be talking to the family, are you happy?
Mm.
And that would be my take on it. So from a perspective, Harry may be the innocent in this, however, but he hasn't turned it down.
Right, that's so
obviously.
I was saying that because that was my point. I've been making around all day around my house, and my significant other is like, "There's no way." My point is, if I heard that the mother of the person that I was receiving an award in honor of was unhappy about it, as a decent human being, I would say I'm going to politely decline, because I respect her wishes, and I feel like I do live a life of privilege. And my significant other's like, no, why would he do that?
Yeah. Well, you can see, this is, this is the problem for Harry. I mean, he's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. So that tends to be the problem at the moment with it. But he has created this problem for himself, and that is part of the problem. But it does seem to me that now all he seems to do is be a professional award gatherer in America, which is a bit harsh, because look, he did some good work. We saw a nice video of him talking to service parents the other day for his charity, where for people who've lost for children who've lost their fathers or service personnel in conflict. A very good charity, and he's involved in that. So this is the dichotomy with Harry. He is very good at these things, but sadly his life has changed irreversibly now, gone to America, and it's a different ballgame. And right now, I think he shouldn't necessarily think that receiving awards, when he's trying to re-establish himself in the eyes of not only the British public, but also trying to cement his place within American society. And that's not easy when you're going around still calling yourself the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and also your children are prince and princesses.
Commercial value. And we'll get into some of those stats for the sake of journalism. But I think that the reason why people are now discussing this is because of that significant amount of money that we saw that the coronation was. First of all, I'd ask, were you surprised by the number that the coronation was? Was it 72 million pounds? And are you at all concerned about the story from Channel 4 growing bigger? Does it have validity? Does it have the validity to really be destructive towards the royals is my question.
I think there are two things at play here. I think it is very important that the royal family are scrutinized. I don't think they should be given a free pass. It's not in the royal family's interest either, in the present sort of climate. They've got to, and let's be honest, the king is always saying, right, reviewing the finances. There's talk of what the refurbishment of Buckingham Palace is costing, and that's, an eye-watering amount of money to sort of make it fit for purpose. But he's not necessarily saying that I'll live there, but I'll open it up so that the public can enjoy it. So he's very mindful that the royal family have to be seen to be cost effective. And yes, the Duchy of Lancaster and Duchy of Cornwall, they are old titles and historically have acquired a myriad of different organizations that pay rent to them. But that is why the king is very aware that he's trying to limit what the state fund the royal family. So much more limited in the money that is drawn down, knowing that the Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy of Cornwall, which is where the Prince of Wales derives his income from, are basically something that people can equate to. But when you see these strange things, wind farms and things, people are going, well, how's the royal family acquired it? Well, sometimes I even think, how the heck do they get money from wind farms out in the middle of the ocean? I don't know how that comes about. But I'm sure the royal family are mindful of where of the PR from this fallout. When it comes to the coronation, I've got a 72 million, I think is fairly small beer, because what you have to look at, it was a pared down coronation, as you know. compared to the one the Queen had back in the early 50s. What you actually got to look at, what was the economic impact? Now, for example, I go to a thing called the Cheltenham Festival. Now, for all you people in America, you'll have no idea what.
We've seen Meghan Markle a lot over the last few days here in the States. She attended a summit in the Hamptons Friday titled the G9 Ventures Summer Summit. This is hosted by a power broker named Amy Griffin. One of my girlfriends was there. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to lose a good source, but we actually discovered this thanks to Page Six, who caught on to the fact that Meghan was flying via a private jet out of Santa Barbara with entrepreneur Jamie Kern-Lima. Jamie is a contact of Oprah Winfrey's. We've seen them sit down with one another. Jamie is she's a makeup entrepreneur, but she's also a motivational speaker, and she does these huge events where she talks to women about becoming the best self, the best version of themselves. According to Page Six, Meghan was there picking up tips for American Riviera Orchard. I would argue that she was panhandling for podcast guests, but she's been doing a lot of networking lately. We also saw her with the star of Father of the Bride, Kimberly Williams Paisley, out in Montecito. And, you know, Rupert, I think she's got a tough road ahead when it comes to making friends with some of these influential women, like Reese Witherspoon, who was also at that event, because she's got to convince them that she's not the woman that the papers say she is.
She's got a long way back, and flying by a private jet, which sort of, you know, Harry's always about the environment. So, you know, there she is flying slightly grandiose, you know, G7, G9, you know, G20. I mean, it's a slightly grandiose title for basically networkers getting together, and all in fine and dandy. They're not just getting together anywhere, they're getting together in the Hamptons, which is a pretty exclusive part of the world for high net worth individuals and people. You know, that is so clearly from Meghan's point of view, she wants to go there to be seen that she is still relevant. Now, it's fine. She's fully entitled to go there. And yes, she's trying to prove that, yes, the American Riviera Orchard she's getting lots of help and inspiration from people who've done this sort of thing. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow's done and all various others. I'm not completely au fait, but at the moment we seem to have just got to 50 bottles of strawberry jam and jars of strawberry jam, and that's about the size of it. So things need to happen, but you know, it's all and a few little nice photographs, but hopefully she's knuckling down and coming back with some proper ideas. But it is interesting, you know, they do the worthy bit about the private jets, yet there she is flying across America from the Hamptons, from California, in a private jet. You think of that what you will, but I know she might say she needs to be kept private, away from the riffraff, the rest of the human race. But I have to say, they've got the optics. You know, if she's flown in a private jet, then don't her husband must be careful what he says going forward with regard to private jet travel.
We have some really great news today because over the weekend, we saw a really beautiful clip of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was Catherine really taking the lead. You can tell she is such a sports nut, celebrating some of your victories at the Olympics. Did you see the video? What was your reaction? I thought Catherine looked absolutely beautiful and had a healthy glow to her, and it was a thrill to see.
Yes, I did. And you have to say, I know that she would have, I'm sure, as she enjoys the summer holidays, and like so many people in this country, would have been glued to the television to see the efforts of athletes from this country and from around the world. But obviously, they would have been rooting very seriously for the GB team. And it was great to see her be part of the celebration. It included people you probably are not overly familiar with, Kinsey, but a few British sports stars, Rebecca Adlington, Claire Balding, who's one of our leading sports presenters. And then we saw Michael Johnson, who works for the BBC out here. And to cap it all, the man who seems to have been everywhere at the Olympics, Mr. Snoop Dogg himself, comes at the end, which is just a bit too cool for school. But anyway, that was, and so yes, look, Britain did pretty well. Well, I think we won 65 medals. I'm not sure how many golds it was in that total, but all in all, yes, it was a terrific performance from the GB team. Everyone's happy about that. But to see that the royal family involved and enjoying the coverage and then finding a way to celebrate. The other thing I did notice, obviously, William has grown a holiday beard.
Yeah, I think everybody noticed that holiday beard. He looked very rugged and very handsome. That is so funny that you said that about Snoop Dogg, because I saw the video on Instagram of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And so I was scrolling through Instagram, and it was a picture of Snoop Dogg that initially popped up on their feed. And the running joke has been that Snoop Dogg will just endorse anything throughout the Olympics, whether it's a burrito, whether it's ski equipment, whatever. It's Snoop Dogg commercials. He's everywhere throughout the Olympics. And so I thought, did this man hack the Prince and Princess of Wales's Instagram account? I mean, truly, he is everywhere. So that was not on my bingo card. The Snoop Dogg leading into a video of the Prince and Princess of Wales. I bet you Prince William got a kick out of that. And the royal fans really falling to pieces over this handsome stubble on his face. Now, you probably know more about this than I do, but we likely don't see that very often due to protocol. Is that the right mindset, or is this just he knows that it looks nicer and he looks more well kept when he does it? What is the status there of the beard?
Well, beards are in vogue. I mean, I wouldn't want to grow one, even on a holiday. I start to feel sort of grubby, but it's all the vogue. So I have to say, if he wants to, he's on holiday, why not? And actually, if you look through history, Edward VII, all kings, moustaches, everything was, that's what you grew. It just went out of fashion. Then it has come back, and now all the sort of younger generation, I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but I'll have to admit it, have all got beards now. My youngest son, he goes around with a beard, so it's all part of it. And I suppose for William, when he's on holiday, he can he hasn't got much hair on top to let down, but maybe he wants to let some hair out and not worry about shaving. So happy holidays to them all. And obviously, like many, they would have been sitting around with their children watching the extensive Olympic coverage. And the interesting thing at the end, with Snoop Dogg endorsing and saying how lovely the Prince and Princess of Wales is, I wonder how well that went down on your neck of the woods with your couple. But Snoop Dogg, I mean, he was everywhere. He was even turning up to dressage to watch the dancing horses. And so he just would pop up and it seemed to be lovely. He turned up in riding gear, I think, at the dressage one day. I mean, I think he was working for your NBC organization, but he seemed to make sure that Snoop Dogg seemed to be popping up on every organization. But fair play, the Olympics done and dusted. And look, the royal family have sporting connections with it. The Princess Royal was there in her capacity presenting medals. She's a former Olympian herself. Zara Tindall, where I was today going to a place where Zara Tindall will be competing at the Burley Horse Trials at the beginning of September. And she's a former Olympian. So the royal family have not just status connections. Some of their members of the family have actually competed at Olympics. What did it bring beneficial to Britain in terms of tourism? And that's
you're absolutely right, because the Center of Economics and Business Research estimated that the UK would get, and this is just an estimation, I think it actually turned out to be higher, but they estimated the UK would get £337 million in boosts when it comes to tourism, but also that 3-day weekend where there were more people in the pubs and more people spending money because they had the extra bank holiday on May 8th. I do think the one thing that made me kind of go, ooh, was the $11.4 million deal between the Guy's and St. Thomas NHS Trust and the Duchy of Lancaster to rent a London warehouse over 15 years to store ambulances. And you're going to be like, that's unrelated. This is silly, but it's hard to digest that, knowing that the NHS is refusing to pay for, like new dementia medications that could change someone's life for the better simply because it's too expensive. I don't think that's a great look when we see King Charles and Prince William so concerned about issues just like that. I think that King Charles would be furious that the NHS would not pay for somebody to have a certain medication because it's too expensive. And then to know that some of those funds, not necessarily in that budget, but funds vaguely related, are going to something that somebody can afford to give them a discount or allow them just to use it.
Well, this is the difficulty for, probably the King and the Prince of Wales are probably unaware of all the sources of income, because both two duchies are big, in a way, corporations. Let's be honest, that's what they are. They're traditional. They've been through the years, have acquired this from way back when. So there's probably a lot of anomalies there. And yes, people are going to say, and that's why the public and the royal family need to know. And then they need to look at it and say, well, how can we make this better? Should we be charging that amount of rent? Do we need to? Because the NHS, which is the great political hot potato in this country like nothing else, it's the reason why, the government in this country is saying why we've done all they've done in the budget is to fund the NHS. Mm-hmm. They're almost their prime mantra at the moment. Now, no one's going to say that's not, in theory, that's a good idea. But when it comes to the royal family, they've got to try and look as if, they understand. And, but actually, probably the King and the Prince of Wales may not be aware of all the things they're deriving income from, because there's probably countless. So it really behoves the people who run the CEOs of these two duchies, to make sure that they are doing it an understanding of the PR aspect of where they're deriving money. And it's not easy. Before, no one would have batted an eyelid, but now the royal family have to be something that is under scrutiny, because public finances are tight. So the royal family should be no exception. But the King is aware that the royal family has to look as if it understands and behaves in a way that doesn't just think, right, we're a money-making machine and we don't care. And the King and the Prince of Wales, that's not, I don't think, in their DNA. That's not their makeup. They very much want to try and do what is right for the country. So maybe down the line, there will be some tweaks and things to what some of these deals. And I'm sure when this program came out, the various houses, the PR people and the teams in the various palaces were thinking, oh, yeah, maybe there are things that we need to look at.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you said that, because that's the way I felt too. I didn't feel that they were aware of these issues. Otherwise, I didn't think that they would exist, because that's typically not the type of people they are. The issues that they were criticized for in this piece are issues that they actually are very fierce about. So that I do want to mention, just for journalism's sake, that a spokesperson for the Duchy of Lancaster, the private estate of King Charles, said it complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards applicable to its range of business activities. Rupert, I think technically that is probably true, but we've seen, we've evolved, and perception is reality, and taking advantage of whatever loopholes they're potentially taking advantage of might cause some resentment. If you think about the late Queen voluntarily paying income tax and capital gains tax on her personal income, that happened in 1992. This was the first time a British monarch had paid income tax since 1930, and that decision made her incredibly popular. People were super impressed by that.
Yeah, and this is one thing. We've got a big inheritance tax debate in this country at the moment. How do the royal family negotiate their way through that? Exempt. They have got great, private estates. What is the situation there? So the royal family do need to make sure that they move with the times. And I stress again, the King is aware of that. But it will be Prince William, and he's talked about how he wants a different royalty. And, and that, I think, is a reflection of how he will be thinking. It might not be to everyone's liking.
what it almost broke the internet last week. The fact that Prince William and Prince Harry were in the same space for their late uncle's funeral. They both attended this funeral in Norfolk. Reports say the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Sussex wanted to pay respects to their mother's brother-in-law, Lord Robert Fellows. Harry flew in from the U.S. to join the Spencer family. The Sun said that the brothers made a discreet appearance and sat apart from each other in the back of the church. A local resident was quoted by the Sun saying William and Harry kept their distance and did not speak to each other. Now, initial reports, Rupert, were that Prince Harry would not be there. We debated whether or not we might see Prince William, but we did hear that Prince Harry was not going to be there. So it goes to show how much things can change at the last minute, right?
Well, I think more importantly, it shows the significance of the part Lord Robert Fellows may have played in both the boys' lives, William and Harry. And when you look at where he came from, remember he was the long-standing personal private secretary to the late Queen. Obviously, as you mentioned in your introduction, Diana's brother-in-law. So you can see the sort of royal wheels within wheels, and reflects probably an older time, when you look at Diana was perceived as suitable wife material back in the day. Thankfully, well, whether they should still be doing that, that's open for debate. But if you see what I mean, there was a traditional view that from the aristocracy. But Lord Robert Fellows was a long-standing, he looked after the boys and obviously was a comfort to them, and very difficult through the divorce. And he was also the private secretary during that annus horribilis that the late Queen referred to back in the early 90s, when, not only the divorce of Charles and Diana, there was Sarah and the Duke and Duchess of York splitting up, then the Windsor Castle fire. There were all sorts of series of events, and the royal family's popularity was at a pretty low ebb. But I think what it does come down to is that Harry at least shows, some sense of family. And what was really good, it was under the cover of darkness. There was no fanfare, and it only slipped out. And yes, there are local residents saying they sat at the back. I think the local vicar who conducted the service has also been quoted how he was slightly surprised to see them. But it is sad that there they are at their uncle's funeral, and they're almost, they're not they don't want to speak to each other. And it's a sad subplot to what, anyway, for many people will be a very sad day. He lived to 82, a good innings, but still a very sad day for the family at whole. But at least, I suppose, it shows that even in these circumstances, the brothers can at least manage to be in the same room.
Right. I almost wonder too if we should give them more credit than just assuming that, and of course, initially, because I was on TV within seconds of the report breaking, initially, you're like, Harry, who is hurting who is shunning who? Harry shuns Prince William shuns Prince Harry. But you get away from the event after a few days and you wonder if it's actually a display of respect towards their family members. We're not going to create drama. We don't want to be the center of attention. We want Lord Fellows to be the focus. We're here to honor his life. And maybe it's not about two brothers that don't get along, but two brothers that have matured enough to realize that it's not about them. And they do need to keep a low profile to honor this individual who was so loyal to the crown and loyal to their family, so loyal to the Queen, and it needs to be about him that day.
Well, I think so much of what needs to be, whenever the Harry William sort of roadshow comes in time, it immediately becomes a distraction. So I am pleased that this occasion has actually gone under the radar, a small family affair. There may be a memorial service at a later date, maybe in London or somewhere to remember him more formally, but in this case, this is the family occasion, and I think the common sense has prevailed, that it's quiet, it's unobtrusive. We are honouring a man who served William and Harry's grandmother to great effect, and that's the priority and had to be the priority. So the fact that it slipped out later on is good. And maybe they might have been able to say hello to each other, but again, it might have been a little frosty, and presumably people were sort of looking over their shoulders wondering what's going on here. But the main focus, and you're absolutely right, was to honor a man who had served the royal family with distinction.
I sobbed this morning when I opened my phone and saw this beautiful video of the Princess of Wales and her family. So it was so touching. It felt so intimate and unexpected. What was your first reaction? Were you touched when you first saw the video?
Yeah, well, I actually had to be on air when I saw it for the first time, because we knew it came out and it was embargoed till 4:30 UK time. I was actually on air at the time, and then I saw it. And I obviously read the statement beforehand, so I know the gist of what she was going to talk about, but in essence saying her cancer treatment is over and how much she's appreciated the support of everybody, her family, and what it has meant over these last months. But actually the video took me by surprise, because they've gone for the slick number. But actually at the heart of it, I mean, it's a well-produced number. There's a lot of soft focus stuff and running through fields, but at the heart of it with her husband and her 3 children, it's just a family trying to behave as normally as possible, and you clearly sense the closeness of that family, and it was touching at times. I didn't sob, but I was touched. I'm stiff upper lip British, as you know, Kinsey. So I took it all in my stride. But I was surprised, because the royal family, as we know, is conservative by nature and not great with their public displays of affection. And this was out there. We know she's a very loving and hands-on mum, as much as she can be and has been able to be. And we know the way she wants her life to work around schooling. But actually it was more than that. There was much sort of, the way William and Catherine interacted in the video, I thought was interesting. And bearing in mind that they would have given the final say, what they would have allowed to be put out there. But, when you think of videos past, they're pretty, clinical, not clinical, but there's not that.
Yeah.
And so I have to say it was good, and it's definitely put Princess and Princess of Wales on the front foot from a PR perspective. That's my initial reaction. Bearing in mind, you and I are talking about this no more than a couple of hours after it dropped, but I think initially the reaction seems to be one of very positive. There are obviously things that we can dissect from it. What does it mean going forward? And I think that's the important aspect. But what they've really done, Kinsey, and we've spoken about this on previous Heirs and Spares, about once the children go back to school, what's it look like for the Prince and Princess of Wales? Well, we saw already the Prince of Wales out and about doing public duties and getting out there, and with his homeless charity and various other things. With the Princess of Wales, we're not sure. Well, this is in a way of stopping the speculation. What's going on? She's put it out there now. So now we have something to work on of how the royal family or the Kensington Palace are going to manage her rehabilitation out there in the public.
What did you think when she said that she wants to be back at work like that? I thought that was very sweet when she said, I'm taking my time, but I want to see you. I want to be back at work. It just felt like a love letter to people, the people that wrote in and said, I'm praying for you. It just felt like, and it was so unnecessary and so kind. It just felt like they were giving us so much more than they had to. And I really appreciated that, because I didn't feel like she was treated the way she should have been leading up to this. The Where's Kate hashtag, the TMZ hiding in the bushes outside of Windsor to snap that photo of her and her mother when she was supposed to be recovering from abdominal surgery. It just felt like they were giving us a little bit more than we honestly deserved.
Well, no, I think they're not naive and insusceptible to the support that they've had, because she is a popular figure. And like anybody who's trying to recover from cancer, you would be made of pretty nasty stuff if you wouldn't want to wish anybody well. And I think the general consensus is that she deserves it. We're not privy to what's been wrong with her, but it's definitely not been good. I mean, that's what we can, because it's taken so long. The King's been out and about pretty quickly after we knew that he'd been diagnosed. Yet it's probably been easier to manage in his case, although he's somebody who doesn't like to sit still. And I'm sure for the Queen, it's been something of a nightmare. But we know we've seen him this week at the Highland Games and all that, and out and about. But in the Wales's case, it's a different one to manage. And I think it's very good PR-wise that they have reflected on the fact that they've felt the love of lots of people, aside from just the love of the children and and her husband supporting her through this difficult time. And she does like and want to be a working royal as much as she can. But ultimately, I think this means, and the way this video has been framed, it's family first.
Yeah.
I will get out and about, and if you read the statement, as and when my recovery allows me, even though she's in a post-chemo or whatever treatment she's having phase. And we all know that cancer can bite you back quickly. You think you're in there, and then before you know it, you're back onto the treatment, on the treatment table. So it feels like it's not a straightforward recovery. Even in this post-treatment phase, things need to be managed. But I think the way they've got the PR initiative now is they've put it out there. It's obviously something that's been well thought of. That video wasn't just thrown together in a day. So what you're actually seeing is the PR people and the team have been working out how to rehabilitate her in the eyes of the public and what is going to be important for her. And the statement suggested that it's family first, i.e. her children, because this is obviously, their 3 children. It's been quite traumatic for them, I would have thought. When you're young children, you've got your mother facing cancer, because at their age, they're just suddenly beginning to realize that everything's not about Father Christmas and Disney.
You just told me something off camera that made me very, very envious. Rupert Bell, talk to me about your weekend plans. Who did you see? Was it the greatest experience of your life?
I tell you what, dear viewers, bear with me. America, yes, I know you're in the height of your football season, but we are in the height of our football season, or soccer, as a lot of people call it over there. But as we know, the Prince of Wales is a massive Aston Villa fan, of which I am one as well. I won't show you my season ticket, but I am a season ticket holder. But I was last Wednesday at a game where Aston Villa have made it into the Champions League, which is the big sort of club competition. Well, we played Bayern Munich, a club we beat to win the European Cup. I can see most people's eyes glazing over here, back in 1982. However, the big night, our first home game in this season's Champions League, of which we qualified last season, was against Bayern Munich. I was there, but more importantly, amongst the crowd, the Prince of Wales, William, managed to make it to the ground for the first time. Now, he is a huge, passionate Aston Villa fan. And people say, why? Aston Villa is a suburb in Birmingham. It's a very historic football club, one of the founding members of the Football League. But I'm told the reason he became a football fan is because a lot of his schoolmates were supporters of Manchester United and Chelsea. And he thought, well, that seems rather boring and predictable. But he went to a cup semi-final back in 2000, went as a spectator, he said, with his beanie hat on, and he got hooked on Aston Villa. Now, he is a serious football man in the sense that he is president of the FA, the Football Association. But we have seen pictures of him before cheering on. And he's a real fan. He looks genuine. When we had a disallowed goal, he was all up out in his seats. There are pictures out there. And then he was with 3 of his mates, I think. So it wasn't just going with all the sort of dignitaries, of which there would have been plenty that night. So he was there as a fan. Of course, it's probably quite complicated for him to go. It does require security. We know that. But he genuinely, and interestingly, I worked with a guy called Ali McCoist. Now, that day, Ali McCoist, who is a big commentator over here, was getting an OBE from the Prince of Wales. So Ali and I had been discussing what he should be wearing for going to see Windsor Castle to see. And I know Ali McCoist, who's a big celebrity over here, talk sport, commentator, well-known figure here, great football player when he played the game. I'm sure he had a very in-depth conversation for about the 2 minutes that you get with the Prince of Wales when you're getting an OBE about the game, which I know he talked to him about. But Prince William is a serious football fan. And for me, an Aston Villa fan, we're all looking up and we're seeing him giving it plenty of this, as we all were, because it was one of the great sporting nights that I've ever experienced as a true fan. I went as a fan, not working, just had a great, memorable night. And Prince William was there to enjoy it, along with many 42,000 other Aston Villa fans.
Well, that's interesting. You were both kind of off the clock, just there to purely enjoy the experience. Well, was the beard in attendance as well, or did he have a clean face?
Well, I think he's looking. He's got the beard now, isn't he?
Yeah. I think he's committing to it lately.
Well, I think that's his look now. I think he's obviously been given the green light. I imagine, he says to his wife, "Is this work?" Because that's what goes on, isn't it? Is this working? Or do I need to shave it off? A beard's a de rigueur now, right? Now I don't want to have a beard, but they're sort of amongst beards now seem to be in vogue. And look, it's his look now. He hasn't got much on top, so maybe this is an area of compensation. But anyway, great to see him enjoying himself with the football.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of you because I think you have access to Prince William's upcoming ITV documentary, Prince William Weekend in Homelessness. The Princess of Wales, or the Prince of Wales, is doing this incredible documentary that we actually touched base on previously. I'm a little embarrassed because the last time we talked about it, you were super smart. I'm going to give you credit, but I went on and on about how I loved that he didn't mention his mom because he was owning this, this homelessness initiative. He was owning it, and how I felt like Harry and Meghan kind of utilized the late Princess of Wales to manipulate the public and the media. And I was like, I'm so glad that Prince William has kind of owned this and said that this is my own thing. And you were quick to say, well, we haven't seen it yet, and here we are today. He does mention his mom. I look like an idiot, although it is in a very sweet and organic way. It doesn't feel as needy as Harry and or intentional as Harry and Meghan do it. Like when Harry says, "My wife is basically the second coming of Princess Diana." What is your take on some of the clips you've seen so far?
Well, I think we have to take it that, in a way, his referencing his mother is the reason that he became aware of homelessness, because of her work and showing to both Harry and also to William the situation. It's not all palaces. There is a seedy, sad side to life, and homelessness is the most desperate situation for all and sundry. So the Princess Diana was very keen to make sure that the children understood that there is life beyond the gilded circle, and some pretty brutal things. So while they were having a very comfortable childhood, I think that it reflects the Princess of Wales's, the late Princess of Wales's, desire to make sure her children were as grounded as possible. And from his early age, that's how he discovered, that homelessness was something that he felt he could contribute to. And with referencing his brother, it really is a way of saying, this is what his mother was trying to impress upon the two boys. So it's not much of a mention. It's past.
Pump the brakes. We're going to get there. Pump the brakes, Rupert. That's an entirely different story. So I need you to chill out here. You're too excited with the vodka and tonic. Okay.
I've had one sip so far, actually, Kinsey. So give me a break, okay?
All right. So he He did say, when I was very small, my mother started talking about homelessness, much like I do now with my children on the school run. So that's an interesting little insight to imagine Prince William in the car talking to Prince George or Princess Charlotte about something that his mother had exposed him to. You know, you just kind of mentioned this. He confesses that he occasionally feels remorse over not being able to do more, and he hopes to instill in his children a sense of empathy for those facing difficulties in their lives. Do you think we might see Prince George with Prince William pursuing some of these things the way that we saw Prince William next to Princess Diana once he was a teenage boy?
I think there's every chance in a way, because what William has to do, he's going to be the future king. He's got to make sure that his son understands the big wide world and all its multifaceted facets. And there are bad sides. I mean, I'm not sure on the drive from Windsor to a school at Lambrook. It's a pretty leafy suburb, but I'm not sure it would be an area that would be, oh, how much homelessness is in that area. But I'm sure, because he will be talking about his work with homeless, and it is something that is ingrained in him. He wants to feel that he can achieve something. I'm pretty sure, it would be his dream to end homelessness. But let's obviously say the reality is that's going to be too much. But what he really wants to do is to make sure that people who can find a way out of their predicament and enable people in wherever the various towns. I think there are various projects sort of that are pilots, as it were, for this. And he wants to see, could this be rolled out across the country? He can really give the shop window to fundraising. It is a difficult situation because there are political sides to it, so he's got to navigate that. But in a way, his role within this is understanding the situation, but by his profile, he can help bring people together to try and offer a means to an end for people who find themselves in these desperate circumstances, that they can get a leg up out of their situation and maybe find accommodation, find work, you name it. That's really what he wants to see happen.
Yeah, I think I probably say this far too often, but something that really impresses me about Prince William and the Princess of Wales is how they hold themselves accountable, but their initiatives seem so tangible. For instance, with some of Prince William's homelessness initiatives, you see him introducing different community members, and how are these people going to collaborate to ensure that they find a solution for X, Y, and Z. And to actually see that visually, it gives you a lot of confidence in him, and it gives you a lot of confidence in the project. And it's nice to see something actually come to fruition, even if it's something as small as an introduction, because it gives you a lot of faith in the project, and you feel like they're doing something more than shaking hands and smiling for the cameras. Can you dissect something for me, though? BBC said in an article, if passion projects reveal something about what drives someone, then perhaps his support for the Passage charity is key to unlocking Prince William's character. What does that tell you? How do you respond to that sentence? What about his support for the Passage charity? What does that say about his character?
I think he does genuinely care. He realizes he's in a very privileged position. He's not worried about food on the table. He's got all the privileges a man and his family could want. So what he feels, and I think this is why he knows he has to try and give back and be seen positively trying to give back. Now, you might say this is a very grand project, what he's embarking on, but it is absolutely right. He wants to feel the royal family has a sense of purpose, and it's something that the rest of the country can applaud. They are not just, as you say, going around opening there's a plaque opening a sports hall, but seeing some real positive change. It may be slow, but this is a grand project. But I know that this is something that is very dear to his heart. It's a bit like when the king set up what is now the King's Trust. That was to try and help. He was passionate about trying to help young people get a leg up and give grants to people with interesting ideas and from less fortunate backgrounds. They could have a business, get a grant to help them set up their business. So in a way, this is William's project. Is with others, the air ambulance. He's been very obvious about something dear to his heart. But homelessness, I think we have to say that is his numero uno, along with the Earthshot Prize as well.
What do you visualize? Do you visualize that Prince Harry said in a pitch meeting, polo is an incredibly important sport to my family. My father played polo. My brother played polo. My grandfather played polo. And Netflix is visualizing that story of Prince Harry talking to us about the royal family and Prince Philip teaching him polo? Or do you think Netflix ignorantly made the assumption that they would get some royal association through polo? Because that is naturally where Prince Harry gets it from. Do we think he made the pitch that included his family, or do we think they assumed? Because otherwise, I don't know how you sell this show without the royal family connection.
This is my point. I think I will be interested to see how much he features and if he does feature. You mentioned that trailer idea. If he was doing the hard sell and actually saying, "This is where I get my kicks," where I love, where I can let off steam, and why he lets off steam, and show it, what it means to him, then that would seem better. But I'm seeing a lot of not knobby no mates, but that not sort of people who no one knows who they are. You actually want to go, does this matter?
100%.
And I think when they're pitching it, Netflix know when they sign them. They signed them because of their royal connection. There's no two ways about it. They were going to do this documentary where he tells his story about why he left the royal family. Then they come in. What else have they got? This is the problem for Harry and Meghan. What have they got that actually is going to move the Netflix dial? It didn't move Spotify's dial. Those podcasts I've mentioned before were dull as ditch water. That's the problem. And they've got to
and Rupert, they leaned so heavily on other people in their first episode, they lean so much on other people in all of their episodes. But remember, the very first episode, the only episode Prince Harry was featured on, was a quote unquote Christmas special that featured Elton John, Tyler Perry, Brene Brown. They have spent the majority of their time and resources since they've been in Hollywood attaching themselves to other people, trying to force those people to put themselves out there so that they don't have to. I mean, I think that they broke down during the Netflix show and had to do that. And you could see there were moments where they were uncomfortable, especially Meghan. But I think that they are desperate to try to make other people show their authenticity while refusing to show any sort of sincerity whatsoever, because I don't think they're very likable people, honestly.
Also, the other thing is they're publicity adverse. They say they don't like all this intrusion. But actually, for them to achieve anything, they've got to allow the press in.
Yeah.
And you can't just do it. People will be bored by, if it's so controlled, people go, "Oh, God, what's the point?" We know now that when you look back at old chat shows, you look at old Johnny Carson's or whatever you used to have or we have over here, it was basically who's in town. You didn't necessarily be promoting, but if you could tell a good yarn, you come in. You now know that anyone's going to be on the Jimmy Fallon show. It's going to be somebody who's got something to promote that.
Yeah, but that's why you see people like Joe Rogan excelling over here, that has somebody on for 3 hours. There are no topics. They bounce off each other. They go in 900 different directions. And the reason he excels is because it's all organic and raw. And it's not hyper controlled. And even there is a way to do it where you are trying to control the narrative, but it looks more authentic, or it feels more freeing. And an example I would give you is the Victoria and David Beckham series, where Victoria is talking about her humble upbringing, and David pops his head in and says, like, "I'm here to fact check you. Are you so sure?" And he is challenging her. And it's a humbling moment that might have been scripted, but you were so tickled by watching these two clash that you accepted the fact that 99.9% of that show was hyper obsessively controlled, but you
Oh,
still liked them at the end of the day.
that was so controlled because
Yeah.
there was a lot of airbrushing going on. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
let's be quite clear. Difficult moments in the various stages when he was in Real Madrid and things that were going on. That was a masterclass in protecting brand Beckham.
But it's almost like they don't take themselves seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. And Harry and Meghan take themselves too seriously. Do you feel the same way?
Well, I think in terms of the Beckhams, they control. You've got to admire what he does because I mean he seems to be on every advert. He stopped playing football a long time ago. I mean,
He's now an ambassador for the King's Foundation.
Yeah. Well, look, I think he's desperate to get a knighthood, but but the fact is that documentary. You look at it, and people who know what really went on, you go, "Oh, that was quite well done." That's but
and they won Emmys. Harry and Meghan's didn't win any Emmys. They won Emmys.
So you look at it and go, "That is brilliantly contrived." Telling the story, and it is a good story. They've come from in terms of David Beckham, very humble backgrounds, brilliant footballer, obviously absolutely loves the camera, just loves him. And you can see how his personality has evolved. Just wish he'd kept out of the tattoo parlors, but then that's just me.
You don't have to look at him naked, Rupert. Don't worry. You don't have to look at him naked.
Still see the neck round the neck anyway, and on the hands, and you think, oh, goodness me. But anyway, each to them. I'm just being an old fuddy duddy, but there we go. But you've got to admire Brand Beckham for the way they put that documentary out and got, we all watch it going, you probably go, oh, yeah, well, we know the story and we know that this has been well put together. They covered the ground, but managed to make it seem, palatable for them as putting it out.
Yeah.
For Meghan and Harry, their issue now is, they've got to, what can they do now? Now, obviously, we know the cooking documentary is coming out or a series coming out. And I've said before, just like the sports documentaries, there are, and particularly at this time of year, you presumably on your television in the States can't see enough people trying, and with this being Thanksgiving week, there must be everyone telling how to overcook a turkey or make sure you try and lessen the impact of having a very dry turkey on your plate on Thursday. So here's my point. Is it going to be different? She just does not look like, to me, someone who gets a Brillo pad out and is scrubbing the dishes after she's cooked.
No, that's for the help to do. Well, Victoria also is releasing a competing docuseries about her life, her navigating fame from a young age and her empires. So they're saying that might create additional animosity between Victoria and Beckham and Meghan. I think that Victoria is just done with Meghan. She's got too much going on, and the Beckhams want to be on the winning team, and that is the British royal family. I don't think that Victoria thinks about Meghan Markle very often. But I'm glad that you mentioned just kind of like the trying to control the narrative and how it can feel almost like strangulation sometimes when it comes to the Sussexes, because I was thinking over the weekend when we saw the new interview from Meghan Markle where she's talking about how she likes to have low-key holidays. We'll get into how Meghan is the 17th down to the line of 17 when it comes to the YouGov's new poll of popular royals. But in this new article with Meghan, promoting that she did a special dinner for Afghan refugee women in the United States, Thanksgiving dinner, I have a hard time digesting this new Meghan the Martyr narrative that clearly the new PR is pushing, where every once in a while she will do an exclusive interview with one particular outlet. It's not journalism, it's copywriting. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you are not challenging this woman about anything, it's copywriting. And she was talking about how she has her low-key holidays where she might save one space at the table for a friend like Gloria Steinem. You talk about the royals and their beautiful holiday traditions, Meghan is trying to push herself out here as this entertaining guru where we are supposed to aspire to live a life like hers. And I look at her life and I think, how incredibly lonely. Why isn't that seat at the table for your dad? Is your holiday low key because you've alienated every single person in your life?
Well, let's be honest. It doesn't take probably not a very good phrase right now, the brains of the Archbishop in this country, because we've got controversy with the Archbishop of Canterbury going on at the moment. But the point being, if you look at Harry's alienated from his family, she's alienated from her family. What's the common denominator? My case, I rest my case, my love.
Doesn't it frustrate you that people still lean into the PR propaganda? I mean, I guess their objective is to continue to have some sort of relationship with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. But if my ultimate objective is to have a relationship with the British royal family, I don't pander. Does that make sense?
Oh, I think the problem is they do drive copy. People are interested. Whether we like it or not, we have to accept they are out there. Curiosity, that what's going on, we are talking about them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to accept, we are talking about them and what their role is. But we know that they are scrambling for the oxygen of publicity, but they only want that publicity very firmly on their own terms. Now, we've seen Harry recently having a mock tattoo with this guy who's going to be singing at Invictus Games, and people talking about his Californication. That's what Red Hot Chili Peppers singing that song. But anyway, of Harry and how his accent sort of morphing a bit, sort of going a bit West Coast now. But that's fine. He lives over there and he's hearing it all the time, watching on TV and everything. You are going to adapt the phrases. That's just what people do. So I don't have a problem. But you feel at times even that is a sort of trying too hard.